Welcome back to Artistic Differences. We are a monthly cinema club hosted by Union Docs, and I'm Christopher Allen, and I'm here today in person with the wonderful Cintia Gil. We're in Lisbon, Portugal, and we're doing okay.
We're doing amazing.
We're doing amazing. Cintia is giving up something that's has been very important to her, smoking, and it's gotten us a little bit raw here today. And I'm also just arrived off a plane, so a little loopy myself. But we're gonna do our best that we can. But thank you, Cintia, for hosting this in-person conversation. I'm really excited about it.
No, I'm very happy to have you here. And if you hear a lighting,
we're not going to hear that.
And a person sounding like Darth Vader, it's me giving up smoking.
We were joking that Cintia may be asking every question about smoking today in this interview. But the first Saturday of each month with Artistic Differences, we bring a group of curious international people together for a moment of shared focus, attention, and exchange around what is usually a program of adventurous documentary films.
Yes, and we basically discuss the film program and we ask questions. We smoke cigarettes.
We used to smoke cigarettes. We no longer smoke cigarettes, but we do not invite the filmmaker to be there.
No, we don't. But we bring all the questions back to an interview with the filmmaker, and we bring that conversation to you in this dispatch. So this month, we're excited to let you into this conversation we are having with the filmmaker's work we have been looking closely at, Trương Minh Quý.
At the beginning, I have this idea, what is home? What is memories about home? What is homeless? To answer this question, to make it at the same time material and spiritual, this idea of house as like a mountaintop, something like this.
2 weeks ago, we watched the second feature film from Trương Minh Quý, The Treehouse. It's from 2019.
Exactly. And he just premiered his new film, Vietnam, at Cannes Film Festival and now at the New York Film Festival. And you should watch it.
If you didn't hear that exactly, this is Viet space and space Nam, which I believe are two characters in this fiction film.
Yes, it's the two protagonists, two young miners in contemporary Vietnam.
And while that film is getting a ton of celebration, we're really excited to look at Trương Minh Quý previous work. And we gathered folks in Ridgewood to watch The Treehouse and also online. And it was a great group from around the world.
The entire film was acting like a palimpsest of various memories, and obviously memory is quite subjective.
Why are our memories so image driven?
I was a bit struck by the accuracy of this memory, how she describes in the cave it was 10 months here.
I actually saw the dark spots in the cave as, in my mind when I was watching it, they were souls from the past. And the tourists are walking through the cave sort of in ignorance.
Also, sometimes memories could feel so eclipsed and so far away that it might as well be from Mars.
So we were also talking about the imaginary of what is a home. It's a cave, but it's also a house. And then that from all of these places you can be displaced.
Towards the end of the film, it's interesting to note that a lot of the faces become blurred.
If you're listening to this, you'll probably want to watch The Treehouse if you haven't.
We hope so.
If you haven't. And you should know that all the films that are part of Artistic Differences are available for members, along with this interview there or wherever you might want to listen to podcasts.
Yeah, so catch them at membership.uniondocs.org.
Sau nhiều giờ đồng hồ tìm kiếm trong rừng sâu, chiều qua người dân và công an huyện Tây Trà, tỉnh Quảng Ngãi đã đưa được 2 cha con người dân tộc Co về tái hòa nhập với dân làng. Phải khó khăn lắm, lực lượng dân quân và người dân xã Trà Phong mới tiếp cận được 2 cha con.
Now let's introduce Trương Minh Quý.
So, Quý was born in Buon Ma Thuột, I hope I said it right, a small city in the central highlands of Vietnam. And sorry, but I will read from his bio because it's quite a beautiful one.
Yeah, it's a very poetic bio, actually.
Yeah. So Quay lives and works here and there. In the vibrancy of memories and present moments, his narratives and images lying between documentary and fiction, personal and impersonal, draw on the landscape of his homeland, childhood memories, and the historical context of Vietnam. In his films, he has experimented with combining abstract concept images with realistic improvisations during shooting.
And professionally, he's been in the 2012 Asian Film Academy, Berlin Talents, and his films have really been screened all over the world. The Treehouse premiered at Locarno, and he's been screened in New York and Oberhausen, Rotterdam, all over the place. He won the main art prize at the 20th Video Brazil in Sao Paulo in 2017. So super excited to be having him for this conversation. And I think with that, we should jump in.
Người con khỏe mạnh, còn người cha thì phải nhờ đến sự hỗ trợ của lực lượng địa phương để đưa về làng.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Hey.
Nice to meet you. Quay. Finally.
Yes, nice to meet you.
Do you smoke?
Me smoke?
Yeah. Are you a smoker?
No, not really. Yeah, but you can smoke if you want.
Well, we are on Zoom. We're not.
I don't know how to explain this to you, Quay, but I have to stop smoking. And since yesterday, I started smoking only 2 a day.
We're very proud of her.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're gonna be with her today. So we had this great screening. Well, first, I just want to hear maybe more a little bit about what your trip to New York was like and what presenting your films has been like. Like, tell us a little bit about showing Treehouse for the first time in projections.
Yeah, I mean, you premiered Treehouse in Locarno, right?
Right.
Yes.
And this was
I was there.
You were there?
Yeah.
You was there?
Yeah.
Right.
In 2019, right?
Yeah, 2019. It was very interesting because the premiere in Locarno was also the first time I saw the film in complete, because I finished editing in Vietnam, and then my cinematographer, he did the color grading in Brussels, and then Ernst Carroll, he's I think he's from a ethnography lab.
Sensory ethnography lab? Yeah, we love Ernst Carroll, yeah.
He mixed the sound in somewhere in his studio in the US. And then I didn't see the whole film. So I was nervous, because I didn't know if something happened. And then when it's in the Locarno, in the screen, very big, I keep telling myself, okay, it's good, nothing happened yet. So I couldn't really enjoy the film,
Wow.
Only that the subtitles were too big. Somebody did the subtitle and it was too big, but it's a minor problem anyway. So
no, it was a wonderful screening, and the film actually never left my mind since I saw it there.
Yeah, but as a filmmaker, I don't see the film like you see. I always see the problems and the mistakes. After a very long time, a few years, I watched again in Harvard, and I was surprised at some editing choices.
Like what?
I forgot. Like there is this kind of very intercut, like the few frame, and then it come back to the scene we are watching. I forgot that, and then I told myself, the editor, it's me, should be very, how to say, either high or either innocent or either free, to do this kind of editing. And I felt that I couldn't do this kind of editing at this moment. Because for something like the Treehouse to be made, I think there's only once. And after that, when you look back at the film and then the structure of the film, you realize something that is really maybe something that something that could become my style, let's say, in the way edit films. But because of that realization, it become not that fresh and spontaneous. Yeah.
I see. It's true that actually we talked about that editing question in our study group, precisely about the way you are in a scene. And then, for example, when we are with that woman in the cave, and then we see the little boy, right? Suddenly, and then we go back to the scene. And so there were some comments about that. And actually, now that you say that you were surprised by it, it's interesting because it looked like such a strong decision in the film.
I think the process of editing that, the Treehouse, it took like more than 1 year, and I was editing alone. And it started as a kind of narrative documentary. So I was struggling at the beginning, and it was even more difficult because I was working alone, so you don't have this kind of distance. And then slowly, I think at the end of the process, one day, I was thinking, okay, I will just follow my, because when we edit, there is this flow of image or ideas, but sometimes we try to structure them through a certain frame to explain them before we even make it. So for the Treehouse, at the end of that process, I decided, okay, if anything happened to me in my head, an image, an idea, right at that moment, I will follow it. While I was editing, if everything come to my mind, an idea or an image, I will do it right away. So in a way, it's like association of idea and image, which is the basic of editing. So the Treehouse, actually, the film, if we see it more through the film itself is the kind of the unfolding of the process of editing. I think it's also interesting to see it that way, because up until the end of the film, I have no more ideas, so I decide to end the film. That's more like a introvert way of looking at the film, from inside. Yeah.
I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about the first moments of the film.
So the very first cut is, so this film, the idea to make this film came from this image that I saw many years ago on a trip somewhere in Vietnam. I don't even remember, but I remember I saw the image of a house very far on a mountain. From a road, we can look up and we see some light from a house. I don't even remember, but I remember that feeling of that image. And somehow, I think that image it evokes in me something, because I make film about home and family. So that image, it have a certain value. So the Treehouse starts from that image. And also, like in the film, actually, you can see that there is actually a real house that on the mountain, the house of the baby. So that house, I try to find a house in reality that somehow match my memory. So that's the house of the baby in the film. So at the beginning, the editing is very much, attached to that idea. So there is even the voiceover to explain, to talk about the process, like what I just told you, but in a more poetic way, about memory and stuff like that. And then we have this bit more clear narrative. But actually, in itself, slowly I realized that the way of the shooting and the ideas, it's not made for such a clear narrative, because I have not so many multiple characters, and actually what I would like to talk about is not happening in front of the camera. It's more like the memories and stuff like that. So in a way, to approach it with a traditional way, so-called traditional way, it didn't work, because what I want to evoke is memories about a childhood home. So I think it requires different way to tell a story, this story.
Yeah, in our discussion, people talked about the question of Mars, and of course of Mars being a way of somehow allowing for treating memory in a different way than if you had a specific context, right? But they also talked about a certain blurriness of time and space through memory. It's as if, we don't know exactly what is past, what is present, there's somehow, because of that point of view of Mars, maybe in the editing, you managed to sort of, we even mentioned the sort of constant present, as if everything was coexisting and there wasn't this historical line. And I wonder if that was something that was intuitive and found with the editing, because from what you say, it seems like it's something that you found out later in the editing.
I think, mainly this idea is about time and history, let's say, the connection of history, actually, of the story of each character, and then this connection bonds with the history. Actually, it came from the editing, came from the finding of the footage. For example, I think there is one element in the film. It talks about the tree house of the Lang, his name, who used to live in the forest with his father on a tree house. It was burnt because the villager didn't want them to go back to the tree house. I don't know why. It was strange fear. But then when I was searching for the found footage shot by American soldiers, I also saw that there is on the same location, the hometown of this man, but more than 50 years ago, the people, they also burnt house for different reasons. It starts from this kind of, when you see the connection between the materials, and then you see there is a possibility to see something, a bit deeper in this connections. And another example is in the treehouse, we see that there is a photograph of a group of men standing in the forest, blur face, because I think it's the journalist requirement. You have to blur their face, also because they are dissident. Yeah. So they were stuck in the forest between Vietnam and Cambodia. So when I saw that image, actually I saw that image before I made the treehouse a few years. And so in this film, I would like to use that image again, because the image itself, the face of the people already blurred. So when I saw that, I felt there's something very strong and emotional in this blur face. So that's why from that point in the film, we can see that there's a moment that the other people in the film also have blur face, So the process can be say like it's counteractive, of the process of when you search for material. Of course, you have some ideas, but when you search for material and from the physical material, a photograph or a piece of sound, like the recording of the ambience on Mars by NASA at the beginning of the film, we could hear that it expands the ideas, and actually the film, it tried to create a certain connections between different things, so that at the end, I hope we can go to a certain close focus on the idea of house, of home.
I mean, it seems like to come to these kind of associations and new conclusions, new possibilities with the narrative, it required that time. Like if you were, you said you were spending quite a bit of time editing. So were you returning to shoot after editing for a bit and going back and forth between? And is this a way that you like to work?
Yeah, I think for the treehouse, the shooting will finish, and then it's the long period for editing. So it's the shooting will finish, and then I started the editing alone. Yeah, and actually it's very interesting to edit the treehouse, because it's also something I discover myself. that at the beginning we always start. I always started. It's easier to say we, but I have to say.
But it was just you. It was just you. Yeah, let's be clear.
I always started with the certain idea, and I think it's applied for. And then the whole idea, the whole editing process, it try to realize that ideas through film, especially if that's very strong idea. And the stronger the idea is, I think that the more difficult the editing is. And then I feel that the editing is going to end soon. At the moment you start to question the original idea, that is it really that that idea that the film is based on, and then you face the original idea, which is also the starting point of making this film, and then you face it, and then you ask the question, and then you decide to break the idea actually. So when I felt that at the very end of the process, I felt that maybe that's the film could be finished soon.
You broke it enough.
It's prettily broken up, the treehouse.
Yeah, in that sense, you follow the more sort of traditional process with Vietnam, with your new film, right? It's a more scripted film also?
Yeah. But actually, if somebody read the script and then they see the film, it's different. Okay. This film, I cannot break it until the Born Like the Treehouse, because, of course, the material is different. Yeah, and also, it's different. But actually, some certain part in the film that is the process of breaking apart the scene and then view it in different way. So this spirit of editing from the treehouse still
stayed
somehow in Vietnam. Yeah.
And you were talking about the different materials, and of course we discussed the influence of ethnographic film, and you have talked about that in some interviews, about the influence of ethnographic tradition in this film. But at the same time, you also, even with the use of soldiers' footage, you also talk in a way, you kind of break that, and you also talk about authority over images and legitimacy, but it's also very interesting how you somehow deconstruct the possibility of documenting as if it was sort of impossible. Documentation was a sort of failed task. And I wonder if you could comment a little bit on that, because the way you use those soldiers' images, for example, is quite striking in that sense.
Yeah, let me try to recall, because recently when I watched it in the class in Harvard, I realized that the camera movements of the treehouse is very much similar to the ones in the soldiers' film. Like when they describe the house, the camera bend like this up and down. I want to remember if I saw the footage, the American footage before the shooting or after, because it could be different. I don't remember, but maybe it's a combination of both. Maybe I saw some and then I started shooting. But basically, I think there is this similarity, because in the treehouse, I would like to describe the material of the house, of different houses. So the audience can feel the texture of the house, also can see all of this documenting, by camera. So we see a lot of panning and go to the objects of the house, somehow a bit random. This kind of random film, in like the camera keep moving from this corner to another corner, and also likewise in the soldiers' footage. So I guess the similarity also maybe come from this nature of documenting. So when you're documenting by camera, you somehow you move the camera similarly.
Sorry to interrupt, but it's interesting because you talk about documenting, but actually probably, and this was mentioned too, probably the most accurate descriptions are actually the oral memories. of, for example, that woman who is talking in the cave, right? She's so much more accurate than any image.
or is she? I mean, I guess we should ask.
Yeah. So
I think she remembers differently. You know, I was surprised, and I'm still surprised about how she can come up with, like, when we tell about our memories, it hardly can become such a complete story. You know. But for her, I don't know, but it's very clear. Maybe she is natural storyteller, or maybe she have different way to memorize, or maybe she also have, she invent a bit, she fill the gaps of her own memories for the camera. It can be all of these things. I'm pretty much amazed by how she can express her memories in such a fluid way.
Do you think about this relationship between oral history and a kind of documented history?
Yeah, I think for her part, it's about oral history. Yeah, it's also about the language because, like many others languages, I mean of the different ethnicities, their language doesn't have the written form, so it's oral, and it's used by a very small amount of people. But it's very interesting because she's the only one in the film that can speak Vietnamese very fluently. Yeah, she looks like a paradox, you know, in a way. She comes from this group of people who's very small and who doesn't have written form of language, but she herself, she can speak Vietnamese quite fluently.
Can you talk a little bit about your relation with the people you have filmed? Because you come from a different territory or background. Can you give us a little bit of context? Because that's also something you kind of very subtly, in a subtle way, you bring to your film, right? Like this possibility of reaching the other ones or talking for or with the other one's memory. So it would be nice to know that.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting if we approach this like from this first, for example, if we see from Mars, let's say, then we look at Earth, right? And if there is an audience on Mars, of course they, every story on Earth is a story about Earth and made by Earth people, But then here, when we are here, we have different, of course, we have different concept and different knowledge, and of course we see that, let's say a Western filmmaker go to do this kind of ethnographic film, like in the past and now, it raised somehow not problem, but different questions. But from here, when we look at Vietnam, we may think that all of the film made in Vietnam or from Vietnam are the same, all the filmmakers they are the same. So in a way, even we don't say, but we may accept that, okay, they have the authority to tell the story in Vietnam, inside Vietnam. But actually, it's not true, because in Vietnam there are also different distance. Like I'm from the majority of the Vietnamese people, and my characters. The man and the woman and the little boy, they come from a small group of people. They live in the mountainous area, in the borders area. If I see the film from my own perspective, I see that problem. Maybe the audience, they don't see, if they are not Vietnamese, because maybe they don't see the difference. But I see that, and that is true. I think it's not comfortable, because this film is. The idea to make this film is from this my personal memory, but then I reach out, to the reality, and then I find the real people, and then they have their own stories, and then somehow I have to try to print them stories and their presence into the film by filmmaking language. So in the film, at a certain point, I realized that in the film we only see their stories. They told us about their own story, quite painful, about the house that being burned, about the father that died, something like that. But I didn't see I hide my stories, So I can decide which stories to be seen and to be heard in the film, and then at that point, I felt that there is this kind of unfair, you know, that because only me as a filmmaker, I can decide, okay, because I think we always feel ashamed or shy to share our personal stories on the screen. And then at that point, I decided, okay, if they share their own story, I have to share my stories too, for the matter of being fair. This decision, maybe from the outside, it may bring up another problem, like why the audience need to know the story about the filmmaker, you know. But from the inside, it's the internal process. Okay, I want to be fair. They tell their story to me. I have to let my story exposed also. I think it's also a certain, because this film is made 6 years ago, 7 years ago. So the nature of filmmaking, that my filmmaking, also the way that I see reality in life and approach people, it was different back then. It was, I don't want to use innocent, but it was much fresh, you know. So I think the more we make film, the more we lose that feeling, which is very sad. Yeah,
so this kind of a genius of innocence, but I don't think you've lost it. We're not going to accept this here, but
I saw your last film. You haven't lost that at all.
But it is interesting to think about that as a kind of a certain form of wrestling with these questions in a very pure way, and I think there was definitely a debate in the cinema club about, you know, is this position from Mars, is this a narrative tool, or is this is this actually the position of the filmmaker, and is this about the kind of, as you mentioned, the kind of comment almost on a sort of ethnographic position, and as you say, it sounds like it's kind of both of those things. It does both of those things within the film, no?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, and also in the film we can see the voiceover. Actually, it switched between I and he.
Why?
So I think maybe it's come from literature, because when we read a novel, it is the advantage of literature, a fiction novel, that just by putting it I or he or she, you know, suddenly the writer create a totally different distance, different presence in a book. If the novel start with I, you know, we feel it different, but he just need to change it to he or she is different. So the choice to switch between I and he, to experiment with different perspective distance to tell the story, but also from that dilemma also between, should I treat this I as a filmmaker, or should I think as this I as he, you know, as an subject, as a character, like other characters.
Yeah, and it's beautiful how you build that tension between different distances and proximities between the voiceover and the characters, and then the moment also when you talk to the characters, because there's also that moment, right, when you talk directly. So you're always playing with this distance and proximity, and maybe that is what makes us. There's this sort of unpersonal I in the film, like this sort of circulating I or individuality, that it never gets stuck in one person or one character. It's more like this sort of collective thing.
Collective of authors or perspectives. But is it? I wonder if it's lonely for him on Mars at that distance. There's something.
The idea to talk about Mars, actually, it came many years ago. Maybe you also read about this project, you know, to bring people to Mars.
I think we're still trying, right?
And it's one-way ticket, you know, and actually there are a lot of people submitted because they want to live on Mars, and the idea itself to live on Mars, you know, one way, it's very strange but very intriguing in a way. I guess Mars here is a concrete image of idea or more like a destiny, you know, of being immigrants and being far away from home. So in a way, that's the destiny, because every one of us have to move to be homeless in a different sense. So yeah, that's that Mars is a concrete image for that. Actually, did you see Mars in the film? There's some frame that we see. Maybe people think it's the moon, but it's Mars. It's a red dot on the sky, but it's a bit this because we cannot see Mars from Earth, I guess. So, but
Cintia gets extra credit because she saw it, I guess. But we'll ask the other people in the cinema club if actually they noticed that. That's a great detail. Yeah, it doesn't seem like it's certainly not proposed as a kind of technological fantasy or some like a destination for humanity. It seems, and that's why I bring up loneliness, is because it does seem like the distance and this sort of homelessness is what we take from that position more than some great journey.
But I think this story of moving to Mars, it was different 5 years ago, but now it will be seen differently.
How is it different?
Now with during this year, with all of this technology, Elon Musk, whatever. Yes. Yeah. It people start to think about colonizing moon and whatever, and the space. So it seems more possible now. So I guess the way people see about living on Mars now at this moment is different from 5 or 6 years ago.
It would seem more impossible than you mean.
But it shouldn't be. I think it shouldn't be like that. People shouldn't move to Mars.
You're not recommending that.
No.
We didn't think it was a big tourism film about encouraging everyone to move. The funding did come from Musk, though, didn't it? Actually, for this film.
Sorry? Just kidding. Musk was not there 6 years ago. He was not around. No, we only hear him recently.
True. Yeah, where did
he stole the idea from you?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't hope so.
But tell me one thing, because when you talk about homelessness, right? When you talk about this film and displacement, and actually we discussed whether it's homelessness or displacement, because there's all this movement that is, where is home actually, right? When, for example, when you carry the memories with you, home is somehow what, right? Where do you get back to? But when you were talking about, when you're making a film that is made of so many displacements, like the displacement of memories, the displacement in the sense of the houses, the history of Vietnam, right? And you also do it from the point of view of Mars, meaning from an extremely sort of displaced, homeless, like radical homelessness, right? You left your planet to make this.
Yeah, radical homeless.
Yeah. So somehow I feel that there's a sort of, I will say it in a very stupid way, but I will try to make myself understood. It feels like you're trying to get into some sort of philosophical standpoint to look at the history of your country. Like that's the feeling that comes across, that it's not just Mars, but also the editing, the fact that you're looking for all these sort of circulations of things and you never fixate anything, right? Like dream and reality can be blurred, past and present can be blurred, and things can communicate to each other in surprising ways. It really feels like you're looking for some sort of philosophical standpoint that somehow gives you a freshness from which to look at history.
Actually, the biggest inspiration of the film, of the visualization, actually it's come from Bachelard. So it's in itself already this philosophical but very poetical approach to home and houses. So I think in this film, it's true that there is this sense of trying to understand what is home, to answer this question, to make it at the same time material and spiritual. I guess the philosophy here in the film, it could be understood more through the stories the stories in connection, because it's more like an essay. So through different stories of different people who have different childhood home, and childhood memories. So slowly, how the film connects their stories to bring up to this idea of house as like a mountaintop, something like this. So it's the process to understand my own quest, because at the beginning I have this idea: what is home? What is memories about home? What is homeless? And so the film is trying to answer, but trying to connect the similarities of different stories, and through that we can see the possibilities for this very abstract question. Yeah.
I wonder a little bit about the communities you were working with within the treehouse. One question that came up was if you ever had a chance to sort of screen this for them, and if there was, what the dialogue around the film was.
You mean if I show the film to them and what's the discussion?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So unfortunately, the man, he passed away, I think 3 years ago, of liver cancer. Yeah, the man who used to live in the forest in the treehouse. And so there is the Miss Ho, the lady who was born in the cave. And actually, our relationship is very interesting, because now I'm making another film with her.
Oh, wow.
Yes. Yeah, so also about her memories about the cave, but in different form. Yeah. So I showed the film to her, and she just laughed, this kind of natural reaction, because they never see themselves, and the other family member too, they watch and then they just laugh. So I think it doesn't matter for him what is the film. But because now I make film with her again, I think this film I co-direct with my boyfriend. So we started shooting Vietnam, the majority part of this film, like 2 years ago. But because now I came back to her village, and I make one more another film with her, I realized I feel like maybe that could be the last film I make in this area about her, because this sense of not having freedom to film in that area, because this border area, so the control is quite different. So even as a Vietnamese, you need to explain, and you need to tell the border police where you go and what you do. And I felt a bit suffocated. I think I felt that during the treehouse, but because that was the first time, so it's okay. But now the second time, I felt it too much, and I felt it's very sad for her and for the other people to live in this administrative control. So in December, I will go back to finish the shooting with her. Yeah, and we will have another film with her soon. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So there is no problem with you shooting in Vietnam right now, because I know that Vietnam cannot be shown there, but
I haven't come back to Vietnam. I haven't come back to Vietnam since they banned the film. Mm. So I will go back in November. I hope, and I guess it should be okay. But maybe this could be the test to this time, this shooting, because the shooting will happen in quite a special place. Yeah, it's a border area, so of course they will ask the paper, and I will see if there's any problem. And if there's no problem, it means it's okay for me to make film in Vietnam. If they know, maybe they can Google and search. Okay, I don't know. That's another story. Yeah.
Well, I hope you can.
Yeah.
I hope so, because this band for Vietnam is create very strange sensation and feeling. Because before I never wanted to be known or to be recognized by them. I don't care. But because they banned me, so I feel a certain frustration. That now I'm being known in a way that I don't know. I don't want to be known in this way. Mm-hmm. And I also there's this sense of persistence that okay, I want to make film to prove them that they are wrong. This kind of process of thinking is very strange. Before I don't care, but now they play a certain role in my head, and I think that also the purpose of this kind of how you call it. You always think about somebody, a certain somebody that never there in your life, but it's there. This kind of control, in a way, create this kind of invisible image in your head.
And you find them kind of motivating.
Yeah, I think I still make film, of course, but it's this I don't know. Yeah, like I say, maybe I have to see what happened with the shooting, the next shooting. Yeah, because I think this kind of censorship or this kind of authority power, it imposes in you a certain fear, a certain discomfort that maybe is not there, but the purpose is to make you think that it's there. Maybe in reality, nobody cares, but because they force you or they want to make you think that the problem is there and the obstacle is there. So I think the first step is how to get over the inner fear. Mm-hmm. So I have a friend, she told me very interesting example, because I told her about the story of the Vietnam being banned and my fear. She said I don't remember the name, but this prison architecture, when each room,
maybe
it's a bit like this. So your perspective is limited, and you only from the room you only can see through the jar, but you cannot change your perspective because it's straight, and it's like circle, and in the middle there is only one soldier, but you think that there are many soldiers. So maybe now I'm in that prison, So this time to go back to Vietnam is to get out of that. Yeah,
it's interesting because going back to the treehouse, and we discussed that this actually, in a way, the film is also kind of relaxing a little bit the weight that we put on images. There's this sort of this counterpoint between the attachment of memory to images, but also there are many other ways that life can be transmitted through, right? It's not just images, and it's not just technology. And so in a way, it feels like, okay, film is important, but there are many other ways that, the world can be documented through or transmitted and expressed. So it's interesting that you made a film that is so much like touching this, and now your work is becoming like, because it's also fear from the state power, right? There's some fear about your films on the other side, right? It's not just your fear. There's some fear towards your work. So it's kind of paradoxical.
It's true, yes. I realized this recently, that the treehouse and Vietnam, I always try to make sense of paradox in the narrative itself, and by the existence of the film itself. It's a paradox. For example, just quickly talk about Vietnam. I made Vietnamese to forget about the narrative about Vietnam. So I named it Vietnam. So it's very paradoxical. But then for the treehouse and also for Vietnam, I guess the art of making these films is, of course, is to remember, because the nature of this making film is already documenting, no matter how. But also to forget, for me to forget it, to move on, So in that sense, it's very paradox.
Well, and also, there is an opposition there too, because in how you describe your work in authorship, as an author, you're doing exactly the opposite of the panopticon. You're trying to break across walls and overlap perspectives and do something very radical within the narrative and the view there. So that's maybe if you're feeling trapped, you just return to that.
To that way of making film?
Yeah.
Or you just watch your own films.
Yeah, your own film does it already, I guess is what I'm saying. And maybe that is what's threatening.
I think I cannot say with confidence, but I think it's a need of the material. It's not only the need, but the possibility of the material. Because for different image, it have different way to stretch or to cut. Yeah, for Vietnam, I cannot do this, but for the treehouse, yeah, it's possible. Also the form, because for essay documentary, if we think it that way, it have more freedom inside the film to say what you want to say, or to say what you cannot say, or to connect a lot of crazy things like Mars. But if I step to the realm of fiction, which I already did with Vietnam, I felt it's very limited. It's very restricted, because what audience expect about narrative film is different. So you don't have so much freedom. It's another paradox. Like when you make documentary, you have more freedom like when you make fiction. Because I experienced that to edit Vietnam is so much less free than the treehouse. Yeah.
I don't know if I agree with you. Because I understand what you mean, but actually it's interesting because in Vietnam I feel that there is also this sort of multiplicity and multiple and overlapping perspectives in your characters.
That's the best I can try. That's the best I could try, you know.
But there is. So I definitely recommend people to watch it.
Yeah, please, and don't be lost.
So there was this very interesting comment about the cave and how the way you filmed the cave, Anjana talking about she felt like there were these souls from the past, and there was this overlapping between these souls from the past, this sort of past materially present in the cave, and at the same time, you know, this possibility, these tourists, because she was talking about the moments when we see the dots, you know, around the space, and she was saying like, I almost saw these dots as some sort of ghosts, and she was talking about this also in the context of talking about blurring past and present, dream and reality. And it's interesting how the film, you talk about documentation, but actually you document the way in which reality is so difficult to document, actually, right? And so, yeah, I love these comments about ghosts. What do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think one thing very interesting about the cave or any cave is they hardly change, you know. So why for a house, like in the film we see different houses, they change and they disappear, but the cave's still there. But when we look at a cave, we never think that this used to be a home for somebody. So the material of the cave for us is just a natural material, it's a rock. But here in this film, also in the same way that we see the wooden wall or the muddy wall of a house, you know, the camera also move along the cave like that for us to feel the material of the cave home. So I think the film tried to bring up that, but also here the cave become a tourist place. It's very interesting because it's like a museum, but we don't know. We go there to see what, you know. Maybe we see the rock, but I guess for most of people, they cannot see the difference between rock, and there's no story for them about rock, you know. For them, a rock is a rock, a cave is a cave. Okay, it can be big, it can be good for pictures, but for them, it have a certain limited meaning. But at the same time, we know that in the film there is this woman who see cave differently, not as a tourist who see cave. And then because of this negative image that coming from this concept of living and dying in Vietnamese language, for negative and positive image. So I guess the negative image of that cave with a lot of tourists and their voice echo, in the cave. So it brings that ghostly feelings. And it's true, like when we see the dot, when I see that in the editing, it looks like the station, with the different light disappear, the station to capture the signal. And there is a bit of imagination here about that.
Speaking of negative, it's very striking how you use the negative image in the film.
Yeah, I can't believe we didn't bring it up until now.
Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit about, not just related to death, but of course the question of death, but can you tell us how you came up with that? How did you sort of decided that was important?
Yeah, I think in terms of construction of the film, I need to have the reason to use negative image, because otherwise, if I just simply put that in the film, it's okay, but it can be a bit arbitrary, So I realized that in the film we have the important part about the tomb house, the house for the death. So in a way, we can think conceptually, this house for the dead, it look like a negative image of the house for the living, because we always have this duality in our thinking, left and right, dark and light, and then positive and negative. And then in Vietnamese language, when we use the same term to talk about negative as film negative and film positive, like the medium, the 60 millimeter. So in Vietnamese, the same term negative can be used for film negative, but also for death, for the underworld. So this kind of linguistic connection is very interesting, and because the film is shot on film, that's the very important reason that I can switch it to negative, because we have this medium connection, which is film, negative and positive, because actually the only for film there is the existence of negative and positive. For digital, we don't have that actually. And then this linguistic meaning of negative and positive in Vietnamese language in connection with the tomb house. So that's why actually the first image of the negative we see is the image of the cemetery of the tomb houses. Yeah. So all of this is the justification or to use the negative in the film. Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense. One way we try to wrap these conversations up is with listening and just providing the audience some sound to sort of reflect in some way about the conversation that we've had today. And we wonder if you might have any idea of a sound that would be particularly good for us to bring into we'll play it for like a minute or something after we speak to just it's a very Ernst Carroll kind of ending, I think, to the
Well, I think we can listen to the recording of NASA on Mars, the actual recording that you could find on their library. You go to NASA public library and you search Mars recording, and you can download that I used in the film. Yeah, it's basically like the sound of the wind in anywhere on Earth.
But it's recorded there. We're certain, so we have the real artifact there. That's a brilliant way to end this, and something that sounds like that inspired some of your work. So,
thank you so much, Quý. It's really incredible to know your film for all these years without knowing you, because it's also nice,
Yes.
But now knowing you is even better. So thank you so much.
Thank you really so much. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
I think we should say a very big thank you to our members, no?
I agree. Thank you, members.
Thank you.
And the support and engagement of our members, you, are the reason why we are able to run this cinema club.
And we're hoping to continue to run it and that more of you will join us. And so if you haven't joined us yet and you can afford to be a part of this, not that it's that expensive, it's a small, minor $7 a month fee, please consider joining at membership.uniondocs.org. Membership.uniondocs.org.
You have been listening to Artistic Differences. We want to say thank you on behalf of our whole team. That's Cintia Gilles, Christopher Allen, and I'm Jenny Miller. Thank you, of course, to our featured filmmaker this month, Trương Minh Quý, and to our most patient and wonderful editor, Allison Rogers. Thank you to Andre Simoish for the music you heard in today's episode. And thank you to all the members of our Cine Club that meets the first Saturday of every month. We encourage you to sign up for the next one at uniondocs.org/artistic-differences. And just a little reminder that you can watch the film that we've been discussing in today's episode over on our membership hub, membership.uniondocs.org. Okay, that's it. Hope to see you soon. Thanks for listening, and bye.